Well, hello, Heather. Can you believe it? Episode number 4
I
of Connecting
know.
with
So
You.
excited. We haven't been canceled yet. Yay.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, it's been so exciting. Some of the initial feedback, some of my friends have been and folks that are, just I'm connected with this, said, I think to both of us, it's about time. Don't worry about it
Mhm.
being polished or glitzy. Just
Yeah.
try to get your thoughts out and have a conversation. And hopefully this is stimulating some discussion, around a dinner table or, a
Mm.
conversation with phones with someone else. Or I don't know about you, but a lot of folks have reached out to me and said, yeah, let's dive a little deeper on that. Or what does that mean? So it's just such a joy to actually be kind of in this world, and it's an honor to spend it with you. And very humbled when we get comments and folks are checking us out, on
Yeah.
Spotify, on Anchor right now, and
Right.
we're working towards more platforms. We're running with scissors here, and we appreciate everyone who's coming along the journey with us. I'm just excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No polished and glitzy fear here. We're just gonna make it raw and real. We're not gonna, unless we say something extremely dumb, we're not gonna edit it out. We're just gonna give it to you as we have talked about it. And both of us have, prepared ahead, because one of the cool things about that prompted you and I to do this together was that me reading your book and you reading my blog, we realized we just talk about so many of the same topics. So it's very natural for me to look through your words and pick some words that I've written blogs about and just kind of stick them together and expand on that. So
Yeah,
um,
and there's different perspective then that we each get because
right.
there's multiple lenses. And for those who are just joining us for the first time, I'm Bruce Pulver, and Heather Carter is with me. We're both authors and speakers and bloggers, and my book's Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter.
Mhm.
Heather is Soul-Selfie and Soul-Selfie #Unfiltered. So you can check those out on our websites as well as the notes. But what we're going to do is spend 10 or 15 minutes, if this is your first time here. We're going to break down some words. We're going to talk about them, what the meaning is for us, what we've seen, struggles we've been through, and kind of what inspired these words for us. And then we wrap it up with taking the word, we write it vertically, and we kind of use the letters of the word to just describe it. So, to me, words have always been powerful and impactful, and they definitely set the pattern and set the pathway on which my mind goes and how I think about things and how I approach things. So Heather, today we picked a word that we were both really passionate about. And that
Mhm.
word is the word surrender. I'm boom, right? The ideas and the inspiration just fly when we think about surrender and what does that mean. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start by sharing some perspective on the word surrender.
All right. Well, yeah, that's definitely a topic that I write about a lot, and it comes in a lot of different synonyms for that word. Trust and uh, just dependence on God and trusting His plan for us, our primary purpose, His plan, His will. When I was kind of thinking through this yesterday, I was reading through one of my blogs I wrote on it, and I was kind of making myself cracking myself up, mostly because it was a story about me when I was in the hospital with leukemia, and I had just a couple days, maybe 2 or 3 days before this event, came out of a coma, was intubated in ICU for a week, and when I woke up, I couldn't I couldn't talk. I couldn't sit up by myself. I couldn't roll over. I couldn't walk. I couldn't shower. I couldn't do anything by myself. So I was 45 years old, and I ended up going home with a shower chair and a walker. But before I could go home, I had to prove to them that I could sort of walk with this walker, and I would practice go up and down 2 stairs. Up and That was the big deal. If I could make it up 2 stairs and back down, I was like, I'd pass for the day. So one day I had to, the physical therapist came in, and he was helping me learn how to tie my shoes and put my tennis shoes on. And I had a hospital gown on. And so since I was going to go walking down the hall with my walker, um, he put another gown on backwards, so I didn't have a big opening on the back. So I had 2 hospital gowns on, some bright running shoes that they were teaching me to retie, And then they topped it off with, and then some yoga pants, and then a beautiful giant seatbelt thing that they strapped around my waist. And then, of course, I was bald and had a stocking cap on. So just the sight of me shuffling down the hallway with this seatbelt strap. And then he had a long strap that he was holding so that in case I fell over, he could catch me. That was the main thing. And that's kind of the point of my story, is that I feel like surrender is kind of like by ourselves, but we really, we have this walker, but we also have God who is kind of holding onto this tether, and he's giving us permission to go it alone, but he's always there to catch us should we fall, and we often do. But he gives us this slack to have room to make decisions, to have free will on things, and we have to, but we can move forward trusting that he's got that other end of that seatbelt. So if you fall, he's there. We have to keep what I say, ourselves on a short leash, that we aren't close to God because we're scared of him or afraid of falling, but we're close to him because we need that protection and we need that guidance from him. So for me, I was just also praying that my husband did not come around the corner at that time to see me shuffling down the hallway with the giant seatbelt hooked to my waist. And anyway, that's a visual for me of trusting God and letting him prevent me from face planting.
Yeah. Wow. What an obviously an experience that obviously you will never forget, but it's one that really planted in your mind where you really relied on someone else, in the actual, day to day, a person, a physical therapist to help you through that process, which you probably couldn't have done on your own, but it's what a symbol, right? A symbol of having someone there. And like you said, with our faith and guys, right, we're always wanting to be in control, or at least the perception that we've got this whole thing covered, right? So to me, surrender isn't quitting. It's not giving up. It's not throwing in the towel. I usually say you better keep the towel. Don't throw it in. You're going to need it to wipe off the sweat from the hard work you do. Right? But it is a way of sort of releasing some things. It's a conscious choice to say I can't go at this alone. And to me, one of my life verses around surrender is Proverbs 3. 5 and 6. So I'd love to drop that in here, and then maybe we talk a little bit more about surrender in that context as well. So to me, Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 in the NIV version is trust in the Lord with all my heart, lean not on my own understanding, but in all ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. So your conversation, obviously it was your health battle that you won and you were going through. And that's, a lot of folks can probably relate to that, I would think. And there's some maybe that can't, but can relate to some other type of place where they've had to, they tried to hold on. I can figure this out. I've got this solved. And for me, it's been a series of job changes over my career where it's like, okay, what's next, God? This kind of came to an end, or I've outgrown this opportunity, and the stress, the frustration, the angst, the worry, and all of that can really live on my heart if I don't surrender and trust in him, that he has a bigger plan for me. And so that's sort of, when anything you're going through, I think you can set back and if you really do dive into your faith and let that grow, it's not something that's going to necessarily be automatic, but the more times you spend building your faith, and to me, faith is facing anything insurmountable, trust him. That's the acrostic that I've written for faith. And it's really helped me sort of, I don't say automate that word, but bring it to life for that. Right. I need to have faith and surrender that there's a bigger plan. Yes, we have a leash and we have decision making and we have discernment and we have all choices, but the God is there to guide us with the Spirit, with him, to help us make the right moves if we are focused on him. And so that's one thing that I would encourage those that are listening and maybe struggling with that, because it isn't easy. It does take trust, and it does take a willingness to surrender.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes all we can do or muster is to be willing to be willing. Because, I've talked to so many people lately that they know they need to surrender it. They know that's the answer. They just don't like it. They don't like that answer. And so I just tell them, just pray to that you'll be willing to be willing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's as far as someone can go. And then God will answer that prayer and help them one day to be willing to give it over to him. But um, it's not an easy thing. It's, control is one of my signature sins that I struggle with. And the antithesis to that is surrender, trusting God for all of it.
Well, and the thing about it is in his word, and another really cool thing is that we love to unpack words, is that when you look at, if you write down words and you just move the S to the beginning, it becomes sword. So the words that we speak and how we approach, our conversations with ourselves and what can surrender really mean, let's make sure that it has a positive value, it has a positive perspective, because it in fact is a sword, and it's a sword that can save us if we say, I will surrender, and I will follow, I will try, I will stop trying to have control over everything.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, that we don't have control. We just pretend that we do. When I got leukemia, I was acutely aware that I did not have control over the outcome of this. And it terrified me. And then I started thinking, what should terrify me is that I thought yesterday that I had control over everything. And that was just a big fat lie. I didn't. I just pretended that I did. I fooled myself into thinking that everything was in order the day before I got leukemia. But the reality is we don't know. And we need to hold our plans loosely. That's the thing about surrender, is that, you and I and so many people are driven, and we have goals and we have things we want to do. So we think, well, how do we surrender it all to God? Do we just sit around and let it all just fall in place without doing anything? And that's not it. It's like, make the plans, but hold it loosely. The scripture, I can't remember where it is right now. Maybe you can tell the people, but where it says, we shouldn't say, in a month or two, I'm going to go to this city or that city and do this or that. We should say, if it's God's will, we will do this. So you always keep that in mind. Make your plans, go for it, have dreams, but hold them loosely, because God has permission. We need to give him permission to change our course. We're so nearsighted, and he knows what's out there, and it's usually better than what we can come up with anyway.
Yeah, like the original version of Waze or Google Maps, which is the destination, but the ways to get there. He will move us on that pathway. He knows exactly where he wants to take us. Obviously, if we have plans that aren't aligned with that, that will adjust. But paying attention, surrendering, and focusing within that plan that is, to serve others, right? To do the best we can to live in the image of Jesus, and just stay intentional. Requires surrendering, because it's the way. So,
well, like what you were, or I was just going to say, the scripture that you read at the beginning, where it talks about lean not on our own understanding. I have a friend who always says, when I say to her, and have said to her in many scenarios, said, I just don't understand. I just don't understand. And I don't understand why God. I don't understand why God lets this or lets that. And she's like, I know, isn't it awesome? I'm like, no, it doesn't really feel that awesome. She's like, if you have a God that you can understand all his ways, that God is not big enough. If you can understand God, that's a God that's too small. If if you are able to understand it. So it's a reminder, when we don't understand his ways, instead of being frustrated or sad or angry, to be excited. Like, what is he going to show me? I don't understand this.
Yeah.
And, he's going to do something good with this if I let him do it.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. So you want to summarize on surrender here? I'm happy to do that. We'll go through the word. So everybody, as we close this out, we'll take the word surrender. We write it vertically, and this is what I wrote for surrender. I'll spend a couple minutes here. So in order to surrender, S is stepping away from controlling. We talked a little bit about that. It doesn't mean don't care, It just means having less intention on having control over everything. So that would be number S for stepping away from controlling. The U is it's unlike giving up. Remember, it's always too early to quit. Is one of my friend's favorite comments. It's always too early to quit. So surrendering is not giving up, but it does require loosening the grip. And Heather, as you said, make plans, but hold them without a lot of stress in your hands, right? Requires loosening the grip. And anybody that's a golfer that's listening out here knows that the looser the grip, usually the better the outcome of the swing. That's where the R came from. The second R is it really calls on faith and action. And to me, faith, as I think I mentioned earlier, is facing anything insurmountable, trust him. Just another way to look at faith. And action, the thing I love about the word action, Heather, is it actually has 3 words in it. It has the word I, it has the word act, and it has the word on. So surrendering, like you said, doesn't mean just sit there, kind of, wipe your hands of it and just let everything happen. You do have to be moving. You have to be acting on. You have to be taking action. So I act on is just another way to look at the word action. Okay. So the E is it empowers God's timing. Like we said, the GPS or the Waze or the Google Maps, whatever you're using. One of the key things about surrendering also requires patience. And those two things don't always come together at the same speed and the same tempo. So I would just say empowering God's timing. And the N is now it gives space and flexibility. When we are not surrendering, we often are holding things very tightly. Like, we got this, we're holding on to everything. But if we let go and surrender, then it gives room. It gives room for the plan to adjust. It gives room for people to come into our lives that God's been meaning to bring into them. If we let that part go, as opposed to holding things off, right? So the D then is decidedly calming. When I've surrendered and said, I don't have the answer here, God, I know I need to be calling on you all the time, but this is one time that, Captain Obvious, you hit me up top of the head, and that's time to surrender. It's calming. It gives me a sense of relaxation, of understanding, and of belief that faith is going to take me where we need to go. The E is energy is distributed differently, right? So if we're not holding on and gripping, which takes a lot of tension, a lot of energy, and we've surrendered, the energy level that we have, that I've found, it isn't raised necessarily, but it allows me to put it in different places. It allows me to think more from a positive perspective. Maybe I'm a little more creative, allowing myself to think about something that I haven't been, because all my thought has been in controlling and not surrendering. And then the R of surrender, I know it's a long word, is results can come without force. So, the whole idea of having one tool, a hammer, right? That requires force to do a lot of things when you needed a screwdriver or you needed a socket wrench. A hammer isn't always the best way to solve a problem. So by surrendering, saying, God, use your toolkit, use all the assets and resources that you have, I can't even imagine, means that there's less force in the process and things can actually come to you. I often say you can't push a rope unless it's frozen. Pushing a rope is futile. So, but we want to force something and it won't move. So that's really what I had for surrender. Man, your input and your insight just on your experience, Heather, of kind of surrendering to that mobility, to get back to your house, to get life starting again, was really vulnerable. And you really had to make a conscious decision to say, I can't do this by myself. So you surrendered.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And we are really excited to be back here next week, unpacking another word. But we appreciate you being here. And Bruce, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.